Welcome back to the next section of our contracts and coffee series. I'm Stephen Long, broker and instructor. Wanted to walk you through. We are now up to page 9 of the offer to purchase and contract standard form 2T. We actually left off talking about some of the important topics of the contract, including the deed, as well as some of the buyer-seller paid closing costs that occur on the previous page. The next page has some important topics as well, including prorations and adjustments. Remember, in pre-license and even in post-license, you have become proration masters. So you, while you may not be necessarily required to do the math to prorate them for the closing statement in this capacity, you will be expected to always check it. But this is the part of the contract that says that the taxes, rents, HOA dues, all those things will be prorated. So that's in paragraph 9, short paragraph. Paragraph 10, also short, deals with the home warranty. It says either the buyer is requesting a home warranty, or the seller is offering a home warranty, or no home warranty is being selected. So if you're going to negotiate a home warranty into your contract, paragraph 10 is where that goes. Make sure you fill that in, not only that if you are getting one, but to the cost, the maximum cost at which the seller is agreeing to pay for. So if you put in, for example, that the buyer will get a 1-year home warranty at a cost not to exceed $450, that essentially says that the seller will be obligated to buy a home warranty up to $450. If the buyer then wants additional add-ons or anything above and beyond that, the additional expenses beyond the $450 would be the buyer's responsibility. So section 11, condition of the property at closing should be as good or better than the condition at the time of contract. So at the time we purchase the property, we expect it to be that way when we get to the end. So that is a condition of this contract. So if that condition is not met, this contract may have some repercussions. Now, paragraph 12 is the risk of loss paragraph that says in the event that the property should burn to the ground while we are under contract, we have some options. First of all, the seller will maintain, or is expected to maintain, that liability and that liability insurance so that the property is insured. So if something happens to it, there is the ability to make a claim on the insurance. Now, the risk of loss paragraph 12 says that the buyer will then have the option, if they want to move forward with the transaction as we have, assuming their lender and everyone will allow it, they could do so and receive the insurance settlement to rebuild the structure, or they have the option to terminate and receive refund of all their expenses. So that risk of loss paragraph is important. Also important to explain it to your buyers and sellers, but also most importantly to make sure that your sellers maintain insurance on the property through recording of the new deed, so that there's never lapse in that coverage, so that if it ever does have a lightning strike and it burns to the ground or something happens to it, it is never a moment where it's uninsured and the parties to the contract would be in jeopardy. Paragraph 13 on page 9 says that the delay in settlement and closing, this is that 14-day grace period. Remember, closing is not a drop-dead date. The closing date we filled in on the contract is our target. It does have a 14-day grace period, and paragraph 13 is where it is detailed out. It essentially says if there is a delay in closing, we have that 14-day grace period so long as the delaying party is working in good faith to get us towards closing. And so we want to make sure that it is going to require them to be working on it. If they're just not closing just because they're just not closing, that may not apply. So, but that's where the 14-day grace period is explained. Paragraph 14 talks about possession. Ideally, possession occurs at the time of recording. We've talked about that previously in the contract. Recording is closing. Once we're on record, that's when you can get possession. That's when you can get keys. And then paragraph 14 says accept. And the accepts are if you are maybe doing a buyer possession before closing, where the buyer is actually moving in before the closing actually takes place, or a seller possession after closing, meaning that the closing has taken place but the seller is not moving out yet. And then lastly, there might be some tenants in place where we have to address the rights of a tenant, and so possession can't transpire at closing because of some tenant rights that might be there. So if you have any one of those situations, you need to attach the appropriate addendum and address that adequately. I would highly encourage you to avoid the buyer possession before and seller possession after in any way, shape, or form, if at all possible. It does offer a lot of opportunity for things to go wrong. For example, the buyer moves their stuff into the garage before closing, house burns down. Does the current homeowner's insurance cover the buyer's possessions in the garage? Probably not. Same thing if the seller stays after and seller possession after closing and they're still there. They burn the house down. Does the current now owner's insurance cover what is essentially a renter being in the house? We don't know. So again, just a lot of variables. So really talk to your attorney, talk to your agents, get some advice if you're going to go down that road and use that. Paragraph 15 on page 9 starts to list out the 13 addenda to the contract, the standard addenda that are made available to us as realtors, and we will go through them in each video, subsequent videos, so that you have an idea of what the addendum looks like and how to use that addendum. But again, there are multiple addenda to this contract, and it starts at the end of page 9 and continues on to page 10, where we will pick up, as we are now moving quite quickly towards the end of our, unfortunately, coffee and contract series. But hey, we're almost to the end, and I look forward to helping you on the next page. See you soon.